This is my friend Mac. The second week of February 2020, I rescued him and his dog Bravo from West Texas, where we found this piece of mesquite. Well, I took Mac to Jacksonville, Florida, and I went home. I was on my way to a birthday party for a very special friend, a 60th birthday party. And for me, it was going to be a celebration of a lifetime of friendship between me and 8 other men that I call brother. I was 13 when I moved into Park La Brea. That's where I met these boys. Of course, at that time, we had no idea that we were going to be creating a bond that would last a lifetime. Because it was all fun and games, long summers, boring school, skateboards, cars, girls, parties, anything and everything that boys do. Well, boys of the 70s. I was reminded of a time that we would go out Pershing Avenue in El Segundo, climb the light towers for LAX airport when planes were going over our head. Anybody doing that today would find themselves in prison, more than likely. So you can only imagine the kind of bond that gives a group of guys who felt fearless. We were fearless back then, doing crazy things. I have to admit, this has been one of my favorite projects to do. Just for the reason that while I'm doing it, I'm thinking of the times that we would go to the beach or Palm Springs, or the first time I went skiing. As a matter of fact, it was on Kevin's birthday, and we went up to Big Bear. We stayed in a cabin that Kevin's godfather allowed us to stay in. I had a great time. In fact, I was in college at the time going to LA Trade Tech, and I think the next week when I was in class, I talked the whole class into ditching school and going skiing. About 25 of us, we all went up skiing. When we came back to school the next day, the teacher said, "Well, if you would have told me, I would have went with you." The first time I posted this video, I muted the audio track, thinking I was muting the sounds of the song, me moving around the shop, such as that. And I was actually muting all the stuff that you're hearing right now. Because I wanted to describe these guys to you, these men that I call brother, because they mean a lot to me. My brother Steve, the one I never got along with. I was a kid. He was always the adult in the room. Steve and I never did anything together, except for live together. We actually got our first apartment together with Chris Smith. That lasted for about 8 months. There were some complaints about parties, girls knocking on the door late at night, and something about a bounce check. But like they say, when one door closes, another one opens. And for the next 2 years, I was roommates with my grandmother, coming home to a hot meal every night and clean clothes. And those were 2 of the last 3 years of my grandmother's life. So thank you, Steve. Michael was the oldest of the group. Him and Kevin took an apartment there on Cochran. And I remember having my first beer there. Well, the first beer where I actually felt a buzz. And also getting high there for the first time. It was a safe place. Michael was always very responsible, always watching out. Like I said, he was the oldest. He and I sold wooden spoons at swap meets and beaches and just parties. always enjoyed Michael's company. And he gave me this huge pipe wrench one time because he bought it to install a laundry sink in an apartment over there off of Crescent Heights. Well, I installed it for him and he just gave me the wrench, which I thought was really cool. Kelly, probably spent the most time with him. We both, I would say, had the fastest cars. He had a Buick GS. I had a Plymouth Cuda. Well, I had a Roadrunner at first, but I wrecked that one. Then I got that Cuda. Oh, and I wrecked that one too. I think I wrecked the Roadrunner twice and the Cuda once. But Kel and I used to skate together and go to the beach together. And he stayed up in Big Sur one time for a couple of months. I went up there to visit him. Scared this guy Tom half to death in his GS. Just a lot of times, a lot of good times. We like to try different beers. So not only did he help me explore the different flavors that either one of us might like, but just explore the differences of life itself. Chris Smith, well, there was a guy. He was just easy going, always had a humorous story to share with us, taking things easy, loved going to the beach surfing. Like I said, I lived with him and Steve for a while, and during that time he had planned a surprise party for my birthday one time at one of my favorite restaurants, the Original Pantry downtown. We had both taken a night course in auto shop down at Trade Tech, and that was one of the greatest parts of our friendship. You left us too soon, my brother. Rob, the pretty boy. There always has to be somebody better looking, and that is Rob Kaplan. I have a lot of fond memories of Rob. There was a whole summer where we were probably just on the verge of becoming adults. We kind of had a sense things weren't going to be the same for a while. And we tried to conform, looking for a job every day, but when we couldn't find one, we just head to the beach. I mean, some days we would spend 20, 30 minutes looking for a job. Couldn't find one. So we would just go to the beach. Rob has always been into sales and retail, working at LA Mart, Photo Magic. Tried to get me to do some of that stuff. We also had motorcycles together. Those were some crazy times as well. Hanging around Los Feliz, driving through Griffith Park with our motorcycles. Even now, when I go back to LA, I stay at Rob's house. It's just something that feels so much like home. There's so much I could say about Chris Ryan. He was the youngest. He was an only child in his family, so he was kind of brattish, spoiled. He followed the beat of his own drum. But when I was going through a hard time, he was there for me. He helped ease the pain of my divorce by introducing me to golf. He was very compassionate that way. And sadly, years later, we had a misunderstanding and he unfriended me. Because we were brothers, our relationship was on the mend, but we did not fully recover before he also left us too soon. My brother Craig, the tallest of us all, in my opinion, both in stature and integrity. He was the first one that I met in Park La Brea. We lived on the same floor. Kind of hard not to run into each other. I believe we were even moving in on the same day. His mother Rose moved back to Las Vegas where I was living at the time. So I saw him the most, and he was one of the guys that my family knew the best. I have this knack for putting my foot in my mouth, and we also had a misunderstanding some years ago, but because we are brothers, we got that worked out. Talk about outgoing. Craig has always been doing fun, cool things, volleyball, scuba diving, traveling. He loves Hawaii. And actually, even though I was raising my family and having a great time coaching soccer and going on camping trips, I was a little envious of Craig and his life as a bachelor. Craig has always been the disciplined one and the one with the most reserve, which is why I believe that makes him an excellent firefighter. Craig is our local hero. Every single one of us love him and are proud to call him brother. Kevin has always been the unofficial leader of the Park La Brea boys. I think it was because we met at his house all the time. Basically, when we came home to MH. He is the first one that I opened up to as far as my background before we got to Park La Brea. Perhaps that had some bearing on his opinion of me, because he always acknowledged my athletic ability, common sense that he felt I had for geometry and building. And although he never actually physically saw the houses that I had built, when I would show him the plans, he was impressed with my designs. I told a story at the party where we had gone skydiving. The weekend that everybody went, I forgot my driver's license, and he took me back the next weekend. I landed on the pile of sand in the center of the target. The instructors noted that I was the first person to do that in 6 months, and I believe Kevin was prouder of me than I was of myself. I have always gained inspiration from others. Hard to inspire yourself, I think. I've always had ambition, goals, trying to make my mother proud, which at the end of the day, I hope everybody does. Hard to shape yourself without the help of others. When I was doing these goblets and thinking of everybody, I was kind of, I don't know if I was dreading doing my goblet because I didn't really have an idea of who I was back then or who I was becoming as I was growing. So I just kind of took the form of that cup from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The cup of a carpenter. But as for the shape, well, I read on a church billboard one time, we are shaped by what we love. So, for my testimony, this is the shape of love. Damn it, I need a box. And this is all the stuff I have left. All right, Mr. I'm a Carpenter, you have 2 days. Let's show everybody what you can do. I guess I rescued that piece of mesquite as well.